Hey over there, Joe Lunchbox.
And Joey Nightingale.
And today we have landed right here in Greenfield Cemetery in Uniondale on Long Island, New York. Today we have come to the cemetery to tell you the story of the man named Walter Hudson. A lot of people only know Walter Hudson from those Ripley's museums. We wanted to actually come here today to tell you a little about his life, the man himself, to learn more than just the views from a Ripley's, believe it or not. So that's what we're going to do today. The grave of Walter Hudson. Step right up, let's go for this ride. It's always different doing cemeteries instead of tourist attractions. It's more of a somber note. But a lot of people look at Walter Hudson as a Ripley's exhibit. Yeah. They don't see the man.
Like he was just put on display there.
He was just put on display, yeah. And it's a little sad, and we were trying to figure out how to do this video. In all reality, Joy and I working in Sideshow has made us come across a lot of people that in the Sideshow world is called natural borns. These might be people of shorter stature, missing arms,
deformities.
Yeah, things that we wouldn't consider normal to normal standards, even though they are normal people, just have different shaped and looked bodies than us.
Exactly.
And these people choose to be in Sideshow to make a living, to provide for themselves. Walter Hudson now sort of is categorized in with those people, but he never chose to be categorized in with those people. He never worked the Sideshow circuit. He never sold himself as a novelty act. So it's a little sad that that's how the world looks at him now, because it wasn't his choice to be portrayed as that.
I mean, in general, he was just a man.
Yeah. It was like, do we just come here and say like, oh, everyone wants to hear what Walter Hudson's diet was, his breakfast, lunch, dinners. That's what the Ripley show, how much food he ate. You could go online and see people go, I'm eating the world's fattest man's diet. Well, first of all,
you're wrong.
You're wrong. He was the 8th largest man that ever lived. And they just use Walter Hudson's meal and do it as a silly video, not knowing anything about the man. So if you want to know stuff like, see the size of his waist, we're going to tell you that, but we're not going to tell you like his diet. That's not important of the story. He seemed happy in his life, which is good. He always loved his family and his Bible. But I feel it's sort of a sad story. I don't want to ever say someone's life was a sad, but like just coming here, there's a headstone here, there's a headstone here, and right here where there is no headstone is the grave of one Walter Hudson. Now, Walter Hudson was born June 5th, 1945 in Brooklyn, and sadly he passed away only at the age of 46 on December 24th, 1991 in Hempstead, just a town over from where we are in Uniondale. We're going to tell you a little bit now about Walter Hudson's life, how he became the size he was, and factors that contributed to him. I feel he was very afraid of the outside world, and because of that he tried to shelter himself living in his house. This caused increase in the weight and increase in stuff. These are the issues that ultimately caused his death at such a young age. By the age of 12, growing up in Brooklyn, Walter Hudson already weighed around 200 pounds. Around this time, he broke his leg and he became bedridden for a break, and by the age of 15 he weighed 300 pounds. Because of all this, he dropped out of school in the 7th grade. He more or less stayed home. And the reason he stayed home, in Brooklyn he didn't have the greatest childhood. It wasn't bad, but like his father left when he was a young boy, and at the age of 15, one of his good friends perished in a building fire, which sort of took a lot out of his soul. And then soon after, he actually saw a stranger die on the streets of Brooklyn of a drug overdose. And with all this, after the broken leg, he figured, you know what? It's just easier in life to stay in bed. And that's sort of what he did. Once Walter Hudson was in Hempstead, he more or less was staying in bed. He would walk 20 feet to the bathroom and back, and his weight obviously went up substantially. One of these times, it would have been September of '87, while walking from the bed to the bathroom, he fell and actually got stuck in the door. The ambulance had to come, police, fire department, and it took them 4 hours to get Walter Hudson freed from the door. At this point, he sort of got known in the press because of this incident. With that, they tried to weigh him then, and he broke the industrial scale, so that peaked at 1,000 pounds. They finally figured out he did weigh 1,197 pounds, and he had a waist of 119 inches. That was the Guinness World Record for the biggest waist. Like I said earlier, he wasn't the largest man in the world. He holds the record for the 8th largest man of the world, at least recorded now. I don't know if there's other people in the world that have surpassed that at this point. But because of this, it made lots of press. Everyone knew who Walter Hudson was. Here's a man that didn't leave his house in Hempstead. And now the whole world knows of this man with the world's largest waist. Now, with this national recognition, there was a comedian by the name of Dick Gregory, and he was at the moment making a diet system named the Bohemian Diet System, and he figured he could use Walter Hudson to promote his diet system. This consisted of having powder that you mixed and drink for breakfast and lunch, then you'd have a real dinner. Now, Dick Gregory said that Walter Hudson lost 600 pounds because of his diet system, and it was never proven because of that weight. But a lot of people also don't know if the diet system might have been cause of his death, which is ironic because he was such a large man, but his body was used to consuming so much food that since he was now just drinking these powders and dropping weight rapidly, it could have caused more harm than good. Dick Gregory wasn't the most positive influence on Walter either, because since he had Walter Hudson using this system, wanting to lose all the weight, he wanted to take him out, put him on TV shows and show him, and Walter Hudson obviously didn't want that. Dick Gregory would be upset and angry at Walter, saying like this was the whole point, like to use it. And Richard Simmons tried to help, news and other media companies tried to help. And when I say help, I mean help. People were trying to profit off Walter Hudson, using them to promote them, which is really sad. He tried this liquid diet for 3 years, and sadly Walter Hudson did pass away in 1991. And to me, that's a sad story. Here's a man that lived his life scared of the outside world, lived in bed. Companies learned about him, tried to exploit him. He's here, no grave, and it became a spectacle. And it's sad that it's not what he chose to be a spectacle. People talk about when he passed away, they had to cut a hole in his wall to get him out. He was too big to get out of the house. He had to get a casket made to fit him. And this plot is 2 plots because of the size. And it's sad that this was in the news, cutting holes in the walls and stuff. Here's a man afraid to leave his house, stayed in his house for 25 years. Now, the only, I want to say, positive things about it was he seemed happy in his house. He loved his Bible, he loved his family. Even though he was bedridden, he started a mail order catalog for larger people, clothing for bigger than XL, large people. So he was still doing stuff, still trying to be positive in the world he lived. But ultimately, these people that were trying to help him indirectly killed him at the age of 46. We just felt learning a little bit more about Walter Hudson, more than just the man you see in Ripley's, a guy sitting there with the 2 braids with usually a fake platter of all the food. We just wanted to share that story with you today, and we're glad you listened. Hopefully you enjoyed it. It isn't the best tale, but now you know a little bit more about the man, Walter Hudson. So there you have it. The story of the man, Walter Hudson. More than just a Ripley's Auditorium attraction. And mind you, I love Ripley's, but I feel he should be known as more than just a Ripley's Auditorium attraction.
Pretty much he should just be known of who he was.
Being Walter Hudson. Hopefully you enjoyed this. We appreciate you watching this. And I think we could call it.
I think so.
The Unmarked Grave of Walter Hudson. Been there, done that. Remember, folks, safe travels.
Good eats.
and live life.